Conscious.Enterprises. I'm Roxana, and the next conversation I have for you is super special. It's with the phenomenal meditation teacher and transformational coach, Sah D'Simone. Sah basically lives in the flow state. He also lives to break molds. He makes meditation and consciousness seem not only approachable for everyone, but also makes it just seem so stylish and cool. With an entrepreneurial background in the fashion industry, Sah founded Bullett Magazine and a successful blog sold to Oracle before shedding his former life and growing into the transformational coach, speaker, and author that he is today. He also just released a fantastic book, 5-Minute Meditations, that leaves zero excuses for anyone claiming they want to meditate and just doesn't have the time. Get out there and get that book because your 5-minute window has arrived. In this conversation, we discuss so much, bridging mysticism, biology, introspection, and science. We discuss Sah's rocky entrepreneurial journey, which includes a hilarious story about him getting fired from a porn shop. We discuss dealing with the highs and lows of depression, bringing meditation to corporations and how it's affecting the business world, the most impactful benefits and transformations that Sah has witnessed from meditation, and so much more. Please enjoy this conversation and please follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and you can always find us at www.Conscious.Enterprises. Sah, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for being a part of Conscious.Enterprises.
My pleasure. I am honored.
Oh, good. So you are a transformational coach. You are a meditation teacher. You're also a certified mental health aide. You're also certified in breathwork and yoga and meditation, and you're a raw vegan chef. So you have a lot of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start from the beginning and we'll kind of work our way over there. Where are you
the
from?
fun story.
Yeah. What's your story? How did you end up in New York?
Yeah, okay. I was born and raised in Brazil.
Okay.
Lived in Paraná, Londrina, where I was born until 16.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved to Florida. And I was in Tampa, Florida for about 4 years, and then I moved, like 3.5 years, and then I moved to LA when I was 19.
Okay.
And I lived in LA for a couple of years, and I moved to New York when I was 21, and then lived in New York until I was almost 26.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then I left for a couple of years, and I came back. I left for a few years, and then I came back summer of 2016.
Summer 2016. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've only been back for what, like almost 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you also founded along this journey a magazine called Bullett.
Yes.
Which seems to have like a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Bullett was born the day that Alexander McQueen died. I don't know if you're a diehard fashion fan, how I used to be, still am. But when Alexander McQueen died, I was on my way to Bryant Park, to the tents. Back then, the Fashion Week was at Bryant Park. And I get a text message that saying Alexander McQueen died. So I was really upset. At that point, I was working as a stylist. Mm-hmm. And I decided not to go to the tents anymore, and the friend that was texting me that McQueen had died said, "Come meet my friends uptown.
Yeah.
They have a project that might be inspiring and fun for you." So I went, and we started talking about building this transmedia company, a magazine that had video component that was that had a really well curated online platform and a beautiful print book that came out every season.
Cool.
That was the birth of Bullett Magazine. And after the first issue, we were sold in 12 countries. There was 50,000 issues being printed, and we were spending on the production and all of it that we're doing almost $250,000 every season.
Oh my God! I didn't realize it was so expansive.
Yeah, the book was, if it was just like the quality of the paper, the quality of the ink,
The details.
the details. Every part of every part of the book was so curated, like a dream.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think the details are what made it successful? Like
absolutely,
what? Cool.
Yeah. And also, I think the fact that we were very well funded.
Yeah.
And that we got, an opportunity to give celebrities, movie stars, and people in the arts and fashion and TV and music, an opportunity to speak about something else, an opportunity to dress in a different way. We weren't so entirely driven by advertising because we had the financial support, and after the first issue we had Louis Vuitton in perpetuity as an advertiser.
Cool.
So that gave us like credibility too.
Yeah.
And we just had so much fun, working with the talent. I mean, some of the fun things you can see is like how we worked with Daniel Radcliffe, former Harry Potter,
right.
And Juliette Lewis and Blake Lively and Pharrell Williams. And Elizabeth Olsen. Some of these people are, we've done such beautiful work. And Brie Larson, I think she's a big name right now.
Cool.
We rented this beautiful house in Los Angeles. We covered the house in moss, and it was just like, it was a dream.
Yeah.
Everything we're creating was just like highly, dreamlike quality that we had about everything we did.
What do you think the original intent was when you were building that business? Because you were so young. Like, do you think you had a conscious intention, or do you think it just kind of like came together?
Great question. Thank you for that. So I don't know if you remember the Face magazine, the British magazine.
Maybe.
I'm sure you it was just like revolutionary.
Okay.
So the Face and Dazed and Confused, also both British publications, were huge inspirations for me and for our team.
Yeah.
And what we really wanted to do was to mix the uptown, downtown.
Okay.
Showing people that you could wear a Prada top with a vintage skirt and Converse.
Yeah.
We really wanted to be a magazine that people could speak about political things and about spirituality and awakening and sustainability. And they had an open platform to really dive deep and be themselves outside of the labels that their publicists put on them, their agents put on them, the world puts on them, for them to really open up. And our themes were like the enlightenment issue, the cosmic issue, the sin issue, know? So we really had an opportunity to work with people in a way that they didn't have. They were being, featured, some of these massive stars. Even like we had an opportunity to go to Macaulay Culkin's house, things of that nature, and work with them at his home because they felt comfortable having us around, because we weren't there to portray them in an eye that was
forced or
exactly. It was just very real, very raw, and we were all so young. I mean, when I started the magazine, I was 23.
Whoa, that's so crazy.
So I was a creative director at 23 years old. With a team of 45 people. And working in all time zones around the world. You know. But like everything.
So you think it was like the fun of it or the excitement? Is that what like drove you back then? Was that what it was?
Oh my God, it was just a lot of it.
It all just kind of came together.
We had so much opportunity to meet so many great people and be around so many beautiful places and create. And I love the creative process. I love coming up with images. And matching the images, and then finding the teams to carry that vision out.
You're an entrepreneur by nature, for sure.
Yes. Well, I've never really had a real job, to be honest. I've had a couple, and one of them I got fired.
Really? Yeah. What did you get fired from?
A porn shop.
You were working at as a cashier?
As a cashier at a porn shop.
That is hilarious.
I know. On Santa Monica Boulevard.
Oh my God.
West Hollywood. I know.
What are the weirdest things? What do people come in there for usually?
Oh, honey, that's a whole long story because even how I got fired is just too good of a story.
I want to know. We'll have to cover that.
Yeah, I'll share with you at some other time. Well, in short, I closed the store. I said it's lunch break, so I closed the store.
Yes.
And there was a customer there. That we got busy.
Oh,
that's as far as I'm going to tell you.
Yes. And they fired you? It's a porn shop. You would think that would be
they saw everything on video.
Oh, no! Exactly. So the merchandise was involved, perhaps?
Let's leave it at that. But yes.
Yeah, you weren't meant for that kind of a structured environment. You needed to do things on your own.
Exactly. I forgot the story. It's been a long
Oh my God,
time.
that's really funny. So I want to talk to you also about, meditation and transformation, all these things that you work on now.
Yeah.
How did you get into meditation on a personal level first?
So after the Bullett, so what happened with that first company, I was bought out of that.
Okay.
And I was bought out by my best friend, also my investor. So it was just like a really hard thing to experience.
It wasn't like an amicable.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, it turned later was.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it wasn't because I moved to America as an immigrant.
Yeah.
Had immigrant jobs from 16 or 18, and then moved to California. Had these like odd jobs. I was like driving around Bobby Trendy.
Okay.
I was working for a medium.
You were in a porn shop.
And then I worked at a porn shop and I got fired. And then
Right.
I became an image consultant. So I was like giving out business cards that I was like here to help people with their image.
Right.
As little as they know, I was just like running away from what my real purpose was.
Right.
And then through this process, I was always very curious about spirituality. Always very curious about, the silence within and like who we are inherently, compassion, kind, creative beings. And then when the whole Bullett thing happened, I went into a spiral of depression.
Oh.
And the anxiety and the under layer of depression that was with me actually bursted, and it became like the forefront. And it was like in the background, I would have these highs and I would come back to a low.
Yeah.
I would have these highs, I'd come back to a low.
Yeah.
The happiness set point that scientists talk about.
Right.
And I would always, my low was very low. And throughout this process, I would just really feel so much lower than I've ever felt before because I didn't have the magazine to experience the highs of the daily,
So you were just stuck in
I was just stuck in a low.
Yeah.
So the low led me to leave New York, go to Florida, start another business. And when I started the second business, it was called Oracle Talk, it was a blog. And when that platform took off and we also had millions of unique visitors within 6 months.
Wow.
The Oracle, the tech company, says, honey, this name, we gotta have it because you're coming up on Google way too much. So I was like, okay, fuck it. Take this name. And that's when I decided to really get curious. I mean, dive into my curiosity because Oracle Talk was me and my brother talking about spirituality. But from a very sassy New York way of like, I like this, but this works, but there was always the hook of like, I don't buy it completely.
As opposed to back then, it was still kind of just like you were in it or not, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then, but we were very curious. We were writing about meditation. We were writing about plant-based lifestyle. We were writing about yoga. We were writing about transformation. We were writing about sustainability, about good politics, about, all the things that are positive that have to do with transformation. We were writing about it. And then I decided to take off and go to India after the thing with Oracle happened. And throughout this process, we had an investor from the person who invested on Refinery 29 meet us in Miami to say, hey, I want a business plan from you guys because we want to invest.
As Oracle.
Oh,
wow.
And that's when I was like, okay, this is real. Let's make this go to the next level.
Right.
But I was still struggling. I couldn't get myself to like really orchestrate this business plan. I couldn't get myself to orchestrate all the tools.
What do you think was the blockage there?
Depression.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like holding me back, and anxiety,
Yeah. And you didn't know where it was coming from at this point.
I didn't know where it was coming from, and I couldn't honor it as like, this is what's really going on.
Right. Right.
I would just keep it, it was in the background, it was coming to the foreground, it was like right here more so than ever. But I would still like, do all the things you do to distract yourself from what's happening inside. The internal landscape was crumbling throughout this process. But I forgot to mention one thing that was pivotal in this whole movement. Mm-hmm. It was after Bullett happened, I went to see my friend Tiffany in Zurich.
Okay.
She's the first person who talked about self-healing, about transformation, about eating tofu and drinking green juice and having ginger shot.
And taking care of yourself.
Self-care, self-love. And then she was like, let's go to Berlin. Let's go meet my friends in Berlin.
Okay.
So I'm staying at this couple's house, and the following morning doing breakfast, they're talking about healing, transformation, meeting their teachers, swimming in a sacred river, drinking entheogenic medicine, fundraising for an NGO in Tibet, all the things. I'm like, who are you guys? What the
is
fuck?
that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had no vocabulary for any
Right.
of that. So I was kind of like, oh wow, this is so interesting. Like, so I felt really awkward. I left this breakfast table. I went for a walk around the block because I was really so awkward that I was like, couldn't really be there anymore.
Right.
So I went for a walk, came back. When I came back is when I started to have this realization, my God, I've been making this beautiful book that is, yes, it is inspiring, but I'm helping, I'm advising people to buy things that they don't really need. You know, instead of investing on their growth, on their healing, on their transformation, and cultivating their own unique creative voice in the world. And that was like a major awakening. So that's when I came back to New York, came back to the States and went to Florida, started Oracle.
Okay.
And in the process of writing about doing the things on the Oracle, I was
so
like
she
meditating.
turned you on to that whole side of the world, and then you took that into Oracle. Got it.
And then I did Oracle. Oracle was only around for like 7 months. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very quick, out big and then out nothing. And that's when I went to India and got into transformation. Really saw massive transformation in myself. I learned what it means to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was even a vocabulary. I had no idea that was even something that you
should
do.
Yeah.
And so often, you know, I didn't know that the stories that I carried with me in my mind were actually becoming my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I had multiple voices in my head, and some of them were very vicious and some of them were very kind, and one of them was a cheerleader, and I should listen to that one more than the vicious one. And I didn't know that I can manipulate my nervous system with the breath.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I could redesign the architecture of my brain with meditation.
Right.
I didn't know that I can change my habits. I had no idea. I thought that I was just a broken, to use lack of a better word, piece of shit, and that was just gonna be that until I arrived in India, and my teacher, just the way she looked at me was like, "It's okay, honey, you got this."
Well, as soon as you got there, your teacher
as soon
was
as
like,
I arrived, she just
Yeah.
looked into my eyes and just like was so present with me that I was like, wow, this is new, you know?
Yeah.
So that's when I started. That's when in my path, my journey started. And then after that first 10-day silent retreat, I went on a 30-day silent retreat, and that's when things just really broke
I've never
open.
done a silent, like, what do you call it, a silent meditation, silent retreat like that for days like that. What's that like? What do you learn?
You learn about yourself.
Yeah.
You learn so much about what happens inside.
Yeah.
And what happens inside is you really get to know your relationship that you have with yourself.
Interesting.
You know,
because you're not interacting with other
with
people.
anybody, nor exchanging eye contact. I mean, we had an hour and a half every day to speak, but it was in a group share with a monk who was there to first ask questions, you know, and to share like what was happening. But you really get to see like how vicious and how mean you are with yourself at certain hours of the day around certain things, you know? And you really get to know your cravings and your desires and your motives.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh my God, I'm really an asshole. Because I was really learning about my motives, about my why I was doing certain things in the world and how I was approaching certain things. And through this process, there was no way out but then to just learn to forgive yourself for all the shit that I had done, and to forgive other people for how they've betrayed me and how they've treated me along this path.
Right.
And then you really see the changes.
Yeah.
You find that you can stop time, you know, not in a linear way of the clock stops, but in just inside. There is this like stillness, and once you tune into that space between thoughts, into that space between each breath, into between each feeling arising and passing, there is this like intelligence beyond anything that we've ever experienced. It's a very personal experience, you know.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah.
So how have you taken all these like amazing experiences in India and the learnings and the teachings of these kind of ancient wisdoms, and how have you brought it back to New York and making this amazing empire that you're clearly out to rule the world with? You're like, how are you doing that?
Thank you. My focus is on bringing the integration of ancient wisdom and modern science. I study contemplative psychotherapy, and that's giving me so much support. It's really just showing that these ancient wisdom practices have all this scientific support.
Right.
They have all the scientific evidence,
Right.
you know, that everything counts. You holding a positive image in your mind, how it changes your whole body's chemistry, how breathing in a certain way can, you know, reacclimate, recalibrate your nervous system, and how having a single pointed object to focus on while you're in meditation, how that changes your habits, how that changes your relationship to the present moment. And
it's amazing.
It's incredible.
It really
I've
is.
noticed massive changes in my whole life. And the reality is like when you experience personally how it happened for me, when I was in such a desperate, painful state with suicidal thoughts and you know, so much pain, that I was able to heal myself with these practices. You know, the way I ate changed, the way I spoke to people changed, the way I spoke to myself changed, the way I meditated, the way I breathe. Everything I did at that point, I was focusing on healing. I was focusing on really finding ways to use the tools that are right here, right now, to transform and to heal. And the more I did these practices, the more I came out of the water, the more I came out of the water. It's almost like, you know, to give you to use a visual image, it's almost like there's always this fan in the background going on, a very noisy fan, and then all of a sudden, the more you do the work, the less the fan is, the sound is there, the less is there, the less, and at some point it's off.
Right.
You know, and it's almost like there's a cloud here, and all this, you start to do the work, the cloud starts to go to peripheral, and then all of a sudden it's here, and it passes, and then you're looking at your book of your life as if you're reading someone else's life story.
Yeah.
You know, you have to go constantly pick up that book off the shelf.
It's amazing too, because science has now found ways to explain this with the brain synapses. Like literally what's happening is you are closing out or short-circuiting a brain synapse that was once there, and you're growing a new one where it might be, you know, happiness and joy and gratitude versus the other one that was like darkness and depression and whatever.
Fear,
it was.
guilt, shame.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
So I felt the calling to share all the tools that have helped me. You know, and I really, a huge part of my work in the next coming years is to really step into the role of mental health advocacy, to get people to really learn that unless we talk about this shit, we're never going to end mental health stigma, because everybody's suffering. It doesn't matter who you are, what zip code you're in, your skin color, your sexual preference, everyone's experiencing some kind of shit at some point in their lives, you know?
Totally. I agree. I think that's a great mission. So you also do a lot of corporate meditations, I've noticed.
Yeah.
Who are some of the brands that you've worked with so far that people would recognize?
Cool. American Express.
Oh, that's a big one.
Havas.
Cool.
And WeWork.
Oh, nice.
New House.
Awesome.
New Balance.
Oh, cool.
I don't know. I've done so many.
Tons
I
of
forgot.
them. Yeah. What do you think? Why do you think meditation is so important to integrate into a corporate setting? And what is that doing in the corporate structure?
Oof, my God, it's massive work. It's so funny because you've sat with me before, and my work is very dynamic.
Yeah.
When I'm sharing the practices, it's intense to be in there, but I think I make it accessible and I make it funny, and I'm not showing up wearing a full white turban and be like, namaste, sweetie, you know what I mean? I open with like, you know, an introduction into the scientific evidence behind the practice I'm going to share, and I always close with a little homework. I think it's so important to have that, because corporate culture, it is so rooted in the bottom line, you know, and then when you come in with these practices, you realize that you're spending so much of your time in that desk, and then you forgot your personal bottom line. Like why you're doing what you're doing, you know? And it's tough for corporate spaces and to have people coming in there and sharing these practices, because what happens is one of two things. People realize that they really love their job, and they really want to find ways to become more creative at what they're doing.
Amazing.
So they're, you know, being able to have this longer attention spans, you know, where they can do that task more fully with a unitask, you know, they're not multitasking. Or what happens is they realize that they hate that job. They need to get the fuck out of there. So it's a very fine line, you know, that is about going into these spaces and getting people to drop into that space, because when you drop in, what arises is that voice that has been saying, hey, I'm here, what's up, what's really good?
Right.
And all of a sudden, when you meditate, the voice like, "Yo, what up?
Yeah.
What's really
Get
good?
the hell out of here.
Get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
Or it says, "Hey, you love this, but you should be doing that part.
Why aren't you
Focus
giving
on this."
100%? Yeah, why is it
Exactly.
50? Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally. That's amazing. It's such a
Yeah.
crucial thing that people need to wake up to also, being in a corporate setting.
I mean, I love going in there and just noticing, because a lot of the work is rooted within a community of people who are already seeking and doing this work. So when you go in there, Havas, for instance, right? We had a Business Insider wrote a piece about the day that I went in there, which was fabulous.
Oh, that's amazing.
And because Havas has a meditation room in their office.
How cool.
It's incredible,
That is incredible.
and it's like the 5th largest marketing company, advertising industry, agency in the world.
Yeah.
So the top ones are killing it. I mean, American Express had me fly out to Denver to lead something for the people there. So it's really interesting. But sometimes you go into different places and everyone's very, like this. And then you ask them to start breathing or hold their, breathing through your left nostril, and then they're so afraid of what their co-worker's gonna do.
Yeah.
And I was doing something the other day with this big group for this, great company, and the CEO, the big C's were all there, and all everyone else from the company was there too, and then how their interaction with each other, because they were sharing that space, sharing that silence. It does wonders for them.
I'm sure. That was going to be my next question. Like, do you find that certain spaces people are so more resistant to doing a meditation in a corporate setting?
Yes.
Because somewhere in like American Express, I mean, I think they're a great brand and all, but I would imagine their office is not used to having someone like you come in and be like, let's breathe through our left nostril.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like, are people
They
like,
have
resistant?
resistance. They have resistance, especially when I ask them to do the breath work, which requires
a little
them
work.
to outwardly do something. They rather have someone who come in and do a sound bath.
Right.
So just close your eyes.
Right.
And listen to this music, and it's doing all the work. It's like, honey, the reality is you gotta do the fucking work if you want to transform. So there is resistance.
Yeah.
But I always try to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
If you've taken yourself to this space, if we're here with
Yeah.
everybody else, let's be accountable for everybody else's time too.
Right.
So do the motherfucking work.
You're right.
Let's do it. Let's go
How are
there.
they walking out of there, the ones that are resistant? Do you think they get something out of it
They
still,
do.
or that's good?
They do. Honestly,
That's amazing.
it's what I really think for this, because it's what happens is it is a palpable transformation that happens. It is so beautiful to see.
Yeah.
Their eyes go from being like this to their facial expression changes. When someone's reserved and someone is feeling they're carrying a lot of fear and guilt and shame with them, you notice their postures are kind of like this, even if they're powerful.
Totally.
And then they come out of the breath and the meditation, it's like,
they're like a new person. Yeah.
They are. And even if it's literally they've only been able to do for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute or for 30 seconds, it's already, shows them the power. And it's really essentially giving people the opportunity to know that they don't have control over their mind. Even the most powerful CEOs, you tell them to tell their minds, focus on your breath for 2 minutes. Rest your attention on your breath for 2 minutes and see what happens.
Right.
For 2 minutes, ask your mind to do one task for 2 minutes and see what happens.
Right.
And that proves that unless we retrain our default mind with these ancient practices, we're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Because there's only more things coming at us at every moment.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think it's so important that you're doing it in a corporate setting where people that wouldn't come across a meditation class, naturally in their day-to-day lives, you're there, and you're bringing it to them. I think that's so amazing.
Thank you.
What are some of the most profound benefits of meditation in your experience with other clients? And what have you seen as the biggest impact in the work that you're doing?
It changes their relationships to their stories.
Cool.
So a lot of people carry, to give you an example, someone might have been physically abused growing up. So they are carrying the story in their mind that they were abused because they're stupid, or they're ugly, or they're bad, or they're not worthy, or they don't belong here. So they're telling, but the reality is objectively, that physical thing might have only happened because of their parent was drunk dealing with their own shit. So you were their outlet for that anger, So you go through your whole life carrying that story with you,
Right.
saying, oh, I'm really not worthy. Oh, I'm really just, a piece of
Right.
shit. I really don't belong here. I really should just, whatever. And then you start to change with with meditation practice. You open up space.
Right.
To hold space for this story. And then when you bring up the story, you change the relationship. You're not holding on with such a tight grip.
Yeah.
You start to loosen the grip a little bit.
Right.
And the story dissipates. You learn from it and you allow it to pass.
Yeah.
And then a massive thing for me is the long attention span. That I can be here with you.
Yeah.
And I can choose the stories. I can choose to get hooked on a story. A thought,
Right.
Or I can choose to get hooked in a feeling,
Right.
or I can just choose to be here, present.
Just be present,
And that's a really powerful thing that meditation
really
gives us
is,
the opportunity to choose.
Yes. And I think it's also really important to note that, like, a lot of people think that, changing a storyline is only applicable to people who have suffered some drastic abuse or this or that, something horrible in their lives. And they don't think they're worthy of, my life is fine, so I don't need to do that kind of work. I don't, everything's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that was a big challenge for me coming to the terms with, my life has been pretty good. I'm very, what's the word? I'm very grateful for the life that I've had, especially now, because I have two parents that loved me, and et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't mean that I don't carry things that are, suppressing me. That doesn't mean that I'm not carrying stories that need to be changed, right? And I think that's a big thing that people need to understand. You don't have to have had some huge, drastic, violation in your childhood to need the work.
Exactly.
Everybody needs the work.
Everybody needs the work.
And it's so applicable to every little thing and everything that you do. Yeah.
And this is such a good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's huge, actually. When trauma objectively happens, it's an evidence it did happen, is one thing, right? But what happens is how we all perceive and how our nervous systems and our minds carry trauma is different. You might have received just a no when you needed a yes, and that is as impactful as you being physically abused for some people, and we forget that
exactly.
A 5 weight, a trauma for me, I might have been beat up, but that's only a 5 weight for me. But the 50 weight trauma, it was that one time that I just needed a hug and I didn't receive it.
Get it,
and that might just be the one story I carry with me for the rest of my life until I do the work, And a huge thing is, it helps us deal with anger. It helps us deal with fear, with guilt, with shame. It decreases the size of the amygdala, the stress response in the brain, and increases the size of the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of happiness, which gives us an opportunity to respond to life instead of react to life, which I think that was a massive thing for me, because I was so high and low, wow. There was no middle ground for me, and now I'm being able to live in the middle, because the two highs or the two lows both stress your nervous system.
Yes, totally. Love that. What failure would you say you're most proud of in terms of the business side of your life? Something that maybe at the time seemed like a travesty, but now you look back and see that it was such a growing and learning experience.
Good question. Thank you. It was being bought out of Bullett.
Yeah.
I literally took me years to forgive everybody involved.
Yeah.
Years. And there's still that story sometimes hunts me a little bit, comes back, and I started having this argument in my mind with everyone involved. And then I'm like, oh, look at you. Wanted to come home for tea again? Hi,
Yeah.
And I greeted and he passes.
Yeah.
But it was when that whole thing happened, I felt like I was just a failure.
Yeah.
I felt like I felt lost.
And what did you learn from it? What do you think the learning experience of it was?
I've learned to be a leader that inspires with love.
Yeah.
Massively.
Yeah.
If I'm going to step into a leadership position ever again in my life, I'm going to be someone who inspires with love, with forgiveness, with kindness, and never to make people feel like they're replaceable.
Oh, do you think you did that
I
when
did
you were
that.
there?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're more aware of that.
Oh my God, completely. you know, with the small team that I'm slowly building now, we're all equals, you know, and the message is to really share the tools that have helped me deal with all that baggage that I was carrying with me, you know.
Right. Absolutely. What is your like daily ritual? What is your daily go-to thing that you do to get started with your day?
Great question. Thank you so much. So I wake up, I go into child's pose.
Okay.
In bed still.
Oh, okay.
And while I'm in child's pose, I take refuge in my lineage that I studied.
Okay.
So I say I take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha.
Oh, cool.
And then I say I go through a list of gratitude, which it could be as simple as I'm grateful for this bed because sometimes it's so warm. The sun is you know coming in through the blinds and it's so beautiful. And my flowers. I say I'm grateful for this house. I'm grateful for this day. I'm grateful for this breath, or I'm grateful for, you know, big or small, whatever. I usually start with a gratitude practice. And then I go into an intention.
Okay.
So I always will say, today I'm wiser, I'm kinder, more forgiving, more giving, more courageous, more patient, more generous, more funny, more beautiful, you know, more abundant. I always give that you know, push to my day to really be operating from that high vision. And then after that, I go to the bathroom, I do my thing, brush my teeth. And while I'm in the bathroom, being very conscious when I'm looking at myself while I brush my teeth, being very conscious of how am I talking to myself at that moment? How am I looking at myself in that mirror, and what are the stories that I'm telling myself already? Am I being kind to myself, or am I already being vicious? You know, how am I really treating myself already? How is my day really starting? And after that, I have water, a glass of water, and I have a glass of water with an apple cider vinegar.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And a probiotic. And then I sit to meditate for an hour, and I start the practice with breath work.
What kind of breath work do you do? Which one?
It varies, but the one that I do most consistently is a coherent breathing practice, which is slows down the breath to 5 breaths per minute.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is very slow to help to, you know, to regulate the nervous system.
Interesting.
Which I'll share with you at some other time too.
That's interesting. Actually, this is a total random personal question I'd like to ask you now that you're here. You know, there was a point in my meditation practice where I noticed that involuntarily my breath would slow down so much to the point where I noticed, I don't even know how much time it felt like 5 or 10 minutes might have passed and I hadn't taken a breath yet. And it wasn't forced and it wasn't painful.
It felt great.
It felt great, but then all of a sudden my mind would wake up and be like, you haven't inhaled in a long time. And I'd be like, oh, like I haven't taken a breath in a really long time. Like, what is that?
So they say, research shows that the average person who's like chronically anxious, which is everybody pretty much, unless you do the work, you are breathing, you're taking anywhere from 12 to 14 breaths per minute. Okay. Which is kind of a...
Quick breathing.
You know, shallow up here, clavicular. And then when you start the coherent breath, you're taking a much longer breath. So you're breathing 5 times per minute. Right. Therefore, you're increasing your heart variability rate, and you're creating a better connection between the brain and the heart. Right. And you're sending a message to the brain that you're in healing mode. Okay. So, and then on the mystical side, and it's also mystical because, you know, these scriptures have put forth all these beautiful stories that are turning out to be true. He said that the Buddha was taking very, very long breaths. You know, so long that it was said that at some point that he was breathing, I think I'm probably not saying the right number correct, but he took like 10 breaths per day. Oh my God. And towards the very end of when he was fully becoming enlightened. Yeah. And so it, you know, it might have been exaggerated how we've been translated, but it ties in. Something to do. It ties in with you having these long breaths, you know. And it ties into this coherent breath practice that we're talking about, you know? Interesting. Yeah. So there is a correlation maybe between your level of consciousness, maybe when you're deep in meditation, and the breath slowing down or something. Exactly. Look for I'll tell your audience to look for coherent breathing practice, and I actually have a practice that I recorded with these bells that you can hear. So it actually guides you through this breathing practice on my Instagram. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I know you're short on time, so I'll ask you one last question. I just want to let you know one thing before we move on. That after I do the breath work, I do Kapalbhati, which is breath of fire.
Oh, the breath of fire.
Exactly. Or also known as like skull shining. And then I do about an hour of breath awareness, and I close with the loving kindness practice, which I think we did together.
Yes.
And then I go to the gym. I will run for at least 20 minutes every day.
So
and
good.
That's
and then where you are on Instagram with your
hair.
I always like the hair. So fun to watch.
And then your hair is beautiful. Wow. And then go on with my day, and then I'll have a practice to close the day too. But that's the morning ritual, and it's the non-negotiable. It doesn't matter where I am. I can be traveling around the world. I bring a meditation cushion in my running shoes, and I will do that same practice, because these are the ways that I can, reestablish the importance with myself about mental health, and to be able to share with people from an open heart.
I love that. And your last question, what would be a valuable piece of advice that you'd like to give to other entrepreneurs who are starting businesses with a conscious intention?
Know your intention. Get really clear about why you're doing it. Get really clear why you're doing it. I think that's a huge importance, to not just fall into the trend that wellness is trendy and cool, and and to really know. This is one thing that I posted about it recently, is are you doing what you're doing to seek validation from the world, or are you doing this because it's helping your personal healing and growth? You are clearly doing this huge, starting this business because you're learning for yourself, and you're healing yourself. Same thing with me. As a teacher, I'm exchanging the seat of a teacher-student, teacher-student, teacher-student with everyone that I'm in exchanging time with, And I would also say that to keep checking in with yourself, keep coming back to why you started what you started. Even if you get really big, just remember what brought you together to that point of starting what you did, and commit to having a daily practice so you can cleanse your mind, and you can energize your body, and you can get really close to yourself. So much so that you are really bringing something of value to the world. I love it. It's great advice. Thank you. And thank you so much for coming over here for this great talk. It was so great to get to know you a little bit more. Thank you so much, my love. I really appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you.